Welcome to another episode of codeLive. My name is Mohit. I am a developer advocate here at Salesforce, and I want to welcome you to this episode of codeLive. So, what are we gonna do today? So, today in this codeLive session, I'm gonna go through a new RefreshView API. Now, a lot of you have requirements where you're building a Lightning Web component, and then all of what you want is after your Lightning component does its job, you want to refresh the data in the standard components, or sometimes other way around, where you're making a change in the one of the standard components, and you want your Lightning Web components to refresh your custom written components. And for that, previously there was no official way to do it. There was a lot of hacks in the community. A lot of you have used functions like the aura refresh events and just using a eval to launch them. And some of you have reloaded the page. So I'm excited that there is this new API official way to do the refresh. So I'm really looking forward to this session, and this is going to be hands-on. We're going to write some code. In fact, we'll be building some components. I'll be building a simple component. In an 1 hour you can really, you cannot build something really complex, but a very simple component, and then showing you this refresh view API in detail. All right, now chats are open today, so feel free to just use chat. If you have any questions or if you need any clarifications on anything related to this or anything in general related to LWC components, happy to answer them. And if I cannot answer, I'll definitely take those questions back to the product team so that you all get the answers. All right. Thumbs up if you're able to hear me okay. And we have had some technical issues today, but thumbs up if you are able to hear me okay, see me okay, and uh, you know, we can get started with the code here. All right. Yeah, lots of people here giving me thumbs up. That means we are good to go. Okay. So let me start sharing my screen, and we can go from there. So let's just let me share my screen. I want to share my entire window that I have. Uh, all right, so let me share my entire window today. Um, all right, and let me myself go in this smaller frame so that you can focus on the code aspects of it. All right, so today, as I said, refresh view API is what we're gonna talk about, and let me actually share some documentation before we kind of get into it. So let me share some documentation with you all. So this is the documentation screen that I wanted to share, and this is available on our Lightning web components developer guide. So here really what you can do is you can see an example of a refresh view. This is a very simple example actually, but it just shows you how to get started. The module name is called lightning/refresh, and that's what we'll be using today. And you can also handle back the events, like for example when the refresh is happening, you might have one more component that can listen to that, and then after the refresh it can take further action. So we'll take an example of that. And then you can also have a container. You can put bunch of components under a container, and then you can completely control and have some more flexibility, like know when the refresh is completed, or you want to find out if the refresh has a bunch of errors. So all those kind of things you can do with a container component. Remember that container component is not needed. You can only you can just have a refresh handler component, and that can take care of it. But if you need more flexibility, then you can put a container on top of that component so that you can get some more controls, like for example know when the refresh got completed, if there was an error, and handle refresh errors and stuff like that. All right. So let's actually jump back to the code, and let me actually share my other screen back, and bring back my code screen here. All right, let me share this entire screen. All right, so what you should be seeing now, once I kind of switch back to this, is you should be seeing my Salesforce screen. And let's also do a bit more stuff here. Okay, so you should be seeing my Salesforce screen here, and let me bring my VS Code because that's where we're gonna code. So I'm on my VS Code, and we will try creating a component here. So let's uh, let's actually get started with this. So today I'm gonna create a simple component, and the component name will be called add contact. Um, and what that component will do is it's gonna add the a contact into Salesforce for a specific account. And then what we want to do from there is we want to add a contact, and then I want to show you how, using the refresh API, you can just refresh the related list component, which previously was not possible, by the way. You can have a account component, like for example here I am in my account, right? And if you look at my related list, right, if I add a contact through a custom component, this view can only be refreshed by either refreshing or doing some sort of a hack. A lot of you have used hacks like dollar a dot events, uh, refresh events, basically from Aura. But today we're gonna see how to use it with the refresh API. Okay, so let's start by adding a component. So I'm gonna add a component here. So create a Lightning Web component. We will call this component as create contact. Create contact. So I have the component. And really, in the component markup, what I want is so in my component markup, what I really want is, let me actually blow this a bit more so it's more clear. So in the component markup, what I'm gonna make sure is that we have two fields, first name, last name, probably for contacts. And then we're going to create a contact record all through the Lightning components. I don't want to write Apex because we can do a simple insert of a component through the Lightning component itself. And from there we will see how we can use the refresh API event. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing I would need is obviously like a Lightning card. So I want to create a Lightning card. Let's just use Lightning card here. Lightning card, so that we can just add some headers and some titles, make it look good. So let's have some title. The title for this would be add contact, and then the icon. Let's add a icon called standard record. So standard record. Right, and now let's have a div here. Use a div. In this div, what I want to do is have a class, and these are all SLDS classes available in Lightning design system. So I want to put like a, a margin, kind of a medium margin around this. So I can use var m around medium. So if you don't know more about SLDS, right, you can always visit the Lightning design systems. So you can go to Lightning design systems, and in the Lightning design system, um, Okay, a lot of you have used it. That's good to know. All right, all right, cool. So a lot of you have used Lightning Design System before. Thanks for the survey, by the way, Sarah. All right, so I was talking about Lightning Design System, right? So there are obviously design guidelines here. So one of the things that I wanted to show you was like adding a margin. Go look at margins. It'll show you how to add like a margin at the top and at the bottom. Um, so that is something I wanted to show you. Uh, so on, so you can go here, look at for margins. Now, if you need padding, you can also find, how to do padding here in the documentation. So I'm gonna be using along the same lines actually. So that's why I have my um, a, a little bit of around padding here. So around is for everything. They show you around here. They show all of them horizontal. So you see around here. So I'm using an around, and they also show you like the comfy value and the compact value of them. And that's why you use like var, because then your customers can choose to uh, in the Salesforce setup, right? They get to define how they want their layouts to be, or their aspect level of comfortability with the UI, or the density. I mean, density is the right technical word for it. So if they decide to choose comfy, this automatically takes care with this var keyword. So that's why I'm using that var. And then what we need to do is now I want to add some inputs. So lightning inputs. Lightning inputs is way to add some form element actually. So I can add some lightning input here. So let's just add the lightning input. So lightning input, and the input obviously needs a label. Let's call the label as first name. And we will have a class. Um, Class again. Again, just adding some margin and padding for myself. I can say bottom small so that there is some padding between the next one. Next element that I add, I have the class, label, um, and then probably we can end this one. Um, so other thing is I can always prettify this because I have prettier. So this will automatically prettify for me. So let's add another one for copy paste, add another one for last name, maybe add one for phone or email, add one for email probably. I think there is something called as type, right? So if we go to, and this is where the docs, right? So we have something called as LWC component library. That's where you should be going to learn about these components, and go to the lightning web components and lightning input, right? So in this input there is a documentation. So here I want to scroll and see if there is a special type for email. I bet there is one. Okay, so we can say email. Also, you could hint the user by using a pattern. That's nice. That's nice to know. Um, okay, so I'm going to add a type called email here, called email. All right, so the next thing that I want to add is obviously the pattern. So let's just add the pattern. We have lightning inputs here. So let's actually view it at this point. Maybe I want to add the phone number too, but at this point, right, let's just view how this component sort of looks. So to view that, right, what I want to do is I want to first of all make this exposed as true. And the next thing that I want to do is add some target configurations. I think it's called target. And this thing is always something that I keep forgetting. So I always look at one of the examples that I have, to see what we can do here. Yeah, so basically we can put targets. So I'm gonna go here, targets, and then I can say record page. I want this to be in the record page. So record page. Also, I want to go to the next level. That's I think 58. Probably 58 would be the latest one. We'll see. All right, so let's see how this kind of appears, and then we can go and add logic. Now, while this is deploying, I want to go look at some of the questions that we have in the chat. Uh, okay, so what questions do we have in the chat today? Let's see. Not a lot of questions. So I think we are good with it, kind of. I'm assuming we are. We just move on, and we are doing good. Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah, let's actually move on. I think we are doing okay here. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is we go here and then view that component. So let's actually add that component, find that component, and add it. We can also give a label to this component, makes it really more clear. Master label, and we can say the label as uh, add contacts. And let's deploy this. All right, so let's come back to our lightning component. Click on this so I can refresh this page. Maybe just refresh this. Edit page. And then find that component. It's called add contact. So let's add it up here. There you go. Let's save this. That looks okay. Let's come back. There you go. So we have got the bare bone UI. Now let's add the fun part. That is the buttons. So let's add a button, and then see how we can capture all this data and then create a contact, and then we can add the refresh events. All right, so let's go back to our code here. Let's go back to the code. So one of the things that we want to add is the button. So I will go here and add button. So let's go back and try to add the button here. So to add the button, all that you need to do is use lightning button. Lightning button, and in the lightning button, right, we can give a label. Label for is not, just the label will work. Reason. Okay, so this also needs to be within here. So the label for this would be, let's call it as create contact. If you are like building this for like multilingual, make sure that you use labels here, and in fact labels everywhere, so that it can be translated. Now the variant is band type. it's basically what there are different styles that are added based on the variant. So we want to choose the brand type. And then what I want to do here is provide an on click handler to it. So on click and then the on click handler. Let me save, let me format this real quick. So this got formatted. All right, so on the on click, I want to have event, right? So I'm going to say create contact, save this, format it again. So create contact should be there here too. Let's actually save that. Create contact method, right? So this is an on click event. Again, create contact is one that gets called on the button. Now, how do I capture the input that the user is providing? So I can do that by assigning some variables. So first off, right, I want to use the Lightning UI record API because that allows me to create contact. So let's actually see an example of Lightning UI record API. So this allows you to the UI record API allows you to basically get records and also create records. You can see, and there are already examples for this in our LWC recipes app. That's where you can find the examples, a bunch of examples. I'm pretty sure there is an example also for the refresh API. But really, so you can see there is an example already for refresh API, or I think it's called refresh view. Maybe just refresh. Yeah, it's dispatch refresh event. Yeah, that is the one. Okay, so the one that I was thinking of using is the UI API, right? Lightning Record API. So there are some examples here that we can go look at. But really, it shouldn't be that hard to implement this create record. So let's search for that. So create record input is what we will be using, and yeah, this should allow us to input a record. And then it returns a promise. Okay, so what we will do here is let me create like three variables um, that I want to capture the first name, and then I want to capture the last name, and then email. Start with like a null or something, right? And the next thing that I want to do is obviously obviously we want to fill this out, right? So how would we do that? So we can do that by attaching an event onto our input. So your input can have events, like for example, I can look for an on change event here. So all that I will do here is do an on change event. So on change, now there are a lot of events as you can see. You should just type on and it will show all the events that are available on an input element, a bunch of them. We want to use simple on change here. So on change, I want to handle, let's say handle first name change, right? So similarly, I can have functions for last name, handle last name change, and similarly, we can have one for email, handle email change. Let's quickly go and create them in our Lightning Web component. Here handle name, and it always takes events as the parameter. You can have that, and then last name change, and then email change. So let's have them. And the next thing that we want to do is capture them, capture the values. So basically, you can do that by just doing this dot first name will be equal to event dot whatever the target value is. So event dot target dot value should give you that. Similarly, for the last name, we just copy paste at this point. And then email change, right? So the next thing that we want to do is use that record API, right? The create record API that we are seeing. So it accepts record input. So it does accept record input like this. I think there should be a lightning definition for it somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, so we could import all of them from our schema. So let's do that. Import the object and the fields that we need. So the next thing that I want to do here is import. We want to import the contact object. So I'm going to say contact object. This can be contact object from. You see, if you do at Salesforce, and then you can say schema, you can access all of the schema that's there. You see, so we can access the schema of contact. So I'm going to say schema of contact. And then I can access all the fields there of the contact, right? So the fields we need is first name, last name, and the email. Let me see if you have any questions before I kind of move forward with it. Looking at my chat here. So there is a question from, uh, can you give me an example of the difference between notify record update available and the refresh API? Okay. So that's a great question, right? What is the difference between the notify record update API? And let me actually bring that up in the documentation. What is the difference between? So this is a great question, actually. So notify update record available, right? So you can provide bunch of record IDs, and it kind of updates the Lightning data service under the hood. So that way it can refresh all the standard components. But one of the things that you need to remember is, even though this is good, it refreshes the Lightning data service, but really one of the I would say uh, areas where this kind of doesn't like really work is when you have some components like related list, like exact example that I'm working today. You will see if you work with notify record update available, it's not going to work. It just updates the current record but not the related record. Let's put it this way. So it updates the Lightning data service, okay, and it will not update the related records. You know, Lightning data service doesn't refresh basically the related records. So that is the reason why you will see that the exact scenario that I'm working today is something that definitely is not possible with notify record update. So we'll take a look at that. So Jasper Klang is asking, any reason you didn't use the Lightning record form? Let's look at that. So why did I not use the Lightning record form? So Lightning record form. So you could use that. I mean, you could use the example with Lightning record form. Basically, as you said, you can provide a bunch of fields in them, and that will automatically take care of creating the form for me. But let's see. So on submit there is a handle submit. So I could have done this like on success and then use the handle save there. And then yeah. So I mean really there is no reason for me to not use that. I could have used that, the lightning record form, and you should, because it brings, um, I think it's more easier in a way. You're not kind of having to replicate one by one like one that I'm doing. But for this session, let me just write from the basics. I also want to uh, educate some of our developers here on like fundamentals, right? So as we go, we can look at some of the fundamentals. This is good. If you want the same fields that are there in the layout, you can, and you can pass fields. It really simplifies, and also it has the CRUD FLS field level security. So I think lightning record form should be fine if you're using it for your purposes. That's definitely one of the recommended ways. I'm just going from the beginning, just going one step by step here. Why don't you use the last name, first name, and email attributes as the value attributes in the inputs? That's a good question. Why I'm not using, as the value inputs? Why I'm going by handle change events? Uh, Generally, when you're working with inputs, like especially lighting inputs, there's no concept of two-way data binding actually in the lightning web component. So when you if you have used values, right, there is no way that whatever you are changing, the value gets reflected in your JavaScript. I know you're coming from Aura world, so you might be assuming that there is two-way data binding here, like Aura components, but there's no two-way data binding in lightning web components, and this is the way to kind of link them. If that clarifies for you, Daniel. All right, great inputs. I love the interaction that we are doing here as we are coding, because that way a lot of questions and clarifications are getting clear, right? All right, so moving on, I just want to move on here. Um, so the next thing that we want to do here is, so we have this handle first name, last name, so we will get all these values. Now I can also import some of the data types here. So let's do that. So I can go ahead and say import. Let's import everything. First name. Can call this explicitly here as field. Again, same thing. Add Salesforce / schema contact dot, and then the field name. I think it's just better if I just use the capitals here. Contact, literally contact dot first name. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is, I'm not gonna type it out. Just last name, and the next one will be email field, contact dot email. Let's change this to contact dot last name. Cool. So we have all of them. All right. So next thing that I'm gonna use is, obviously we need account ID, because we want to associate account also in this process, right? Remember, we are creating contacts for a specific context account. We have the component on the record page. So all that I need to do is import that account ID to. So I'm going to say account ID from at Salesforce / schema / contact dot account ID, contact dot account ID, and then the next thing that we want to do is, so how would I get this account ID, right? Um, So you can do that because remember this component is for lightning record page, and whenever you have lightning record page, you automatically get a decorator called sorry, you automatically get a variable called record id, right? And you can decorate that record id with at api using this at api decorator that makes this function available kind of as an api. So we say it's record id, so this record id is there. All right, so now we have these values, right? We also have the schema definitions, right? So all that we will be doing now is creating the contact records, right? So in this create contact, right? So I need to call that record create function, right? So again, I can import that by doing again, this is all, it will be in the lightning ui record module. So we can say import. Remember, create record is a function. So you see, create record is a function. So I imported a create record from lightning slash UI record API. And then we're going to call this function create record. You know what? Create record needs record input. As you can see, it needs record input representation. And if you look at examples, I didn't find a good example over the web, but let's imagine that I just search for it in my Lightning Developer Guide. I'm pretty sure I'll find one. This one, I kind of did not like it because it was just giving me something at high level. Maybe this one is more easier. So as you can see, this shows some good examples here. And so basically you will need something like this. You need a fields object, and this object should have the values, and then you provide something like api name of the field and the fields as the record input. So I'm going to copy this real quick because we will need to shape our request like that. So in the create contact method, obviously we'll need fields. So we know the name field, right? So we know our name fields here, it's first name, last name, email. So I'll quickly fill the out. So because I have from the schema, I can get this from the schema. It's called first name dot field name dot this dot. There's nothing called name. We have first name. I'm not gonna sweat over it. Just gonna copy paste. Um, Instead of first, let's do a last name, and then this will be this dot last name, and this will be again email field. So we're gonna say email field. This will be this dot email. Okay. And in for the object, I think ours is called contact. Contact object. Now I have all of the things. I have the record input as this API would need. Create record API would need. So basically, I'm going to call that function now. So remember, create record takes a record input, right? So we provide the record input, and this is where I attempt to kind of say, okay, what's next, right? Remember that create record is a promise. So whenever you have a promise function, you get something like then and catch, right? So we have a then block, and then block will be a function, right? And you can have an arrow function within that to define what you want to do with your then block. And then if there is an error, then we can use catch block. And again, catch is what you can have within the catch block. Again, I tend to write like this, but this is not correct because this function has to go within this. So catch, again, it's a function that takes a parameter and returns a value. So then what you want to do after the record creation is successful, right? So let's leave at this stage and see if our code is working at least till this stage. And let's see how we can further use the refresh API from here. Okay, now catch will have an error, so this will have an error. So in case there is an error, you can log for the timing I'm logging it, but really what you can do is you can also dispatch that error, or add error handling. Again, your architect might have defined some error handling patterns. You would have chosen some UX pattern to show the error, so make sure to use that there. All right, so we have this. Let's see if this is working. Oh, we forgot the account ID. Okay, let's quickly add in that too. So we need the account ID here. Account ID dot again field API name. And this time, where are we getting this value from? We get it from the record ID. We should have something like this dot record ID that has this. Is, see, when you're working in a context, right? When you're on a page, there will always be a record ID, and that has the context of that page. So in this case, the context is on account. So this will already be there, and that's available when you select the target as Lightning record page. So it automatically has this account ID. Now, if I drop this component on a contact, this will have a contact ID. So that's how I have my account ID here. Let's see if there are any questions before I kind of move ahead with it. Let me see in the chat. Jasper Clang, yes, I forgot to add the account ID. Yes. Value, you forgot to add value attribute on the input. Let's see. That's a great call. I think I need to put that to display at least. Well, you actually don't need that because you're just consuming the data. But if you wanted to reflect that data back to the UI, then probably we would have added a value to here. I think we are good. So let's see. So let me refresh this a couple of times. Refresh or refresh with cache. Maybe I need to save the code. Let me deploy this. Where did my button go? Interesting. Where did my button go? Okay, let me refresh the cache and see. Usually empty cache and hard reload should work. Maybe I did not save my file. Let's see. Create contact. There you go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's say I add a simple contact. Let's add most active person today on the group, Niket. Let's add. Yeah. That was right, Shresh. That's right. Yeah. I had to click on that. Yep. I disabled the debug mode. That's yeah, exactly. I just have to disable the debug mode, but me usually kind of gives me the thing. I have to disable the debug mode as you're saying. There is a question in the chat that, hey Mohit, Salesforce CLI extension write the old commands. When will we get an extension that writes the new one? I think very sooner you'll see that. I don't know the exact time, but I think we will see that. Let's add Niket and let's see if the records are getting fine. Okay, so when I allowed pattern was, I think, or did we define the allow pattern? I think we said example.com. So if you enforce a pattern, it just follows that. All right. So now we created. Now you see there was no confirmation, nothing. Let's refresh and see if the create function is working or not. It's actually not working. Why is it so? Let's find out. Let's debug this and find why our simple function is not working. Okay, so let's add some logs here. Let me go my code one by one, and look at it and see if there is anything that I am doing wrong. So API name, fields, record input, and I'm calling this create contact. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. That looks good. That looks good. That looks good. Okay, we'll console.log and we will see. Field should be an array. Someone said field should be an array. This one, you mean? I just took it from the examples. Okay, let's see if I have the on clicks. So handle first name change. Let's say handle first name change, handle last name change. Have all the handlers in place. Okay. All right. Let's debug this. Let's debug this. Let me debug this. And did we have the account ID correct here? Because I don't want it to go under something else. Okay. Okay. That seems fine. Account ID. That seems fine. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So I didn't see any logs coming out. So that means it did not even. Okay, let's put a log here. Let me look into the chat. Yeah, I love it that it's not working. This is what happens in real life. I completely admit. And that's why, I love live code sessions because, you actually see what happens in the real life. We'll get to the bottom. Create contact should have a parameter. That's what we did, right? Create record, right? So create record has a record input parameter. Is it not? Hmm. Okay, let's debug this. Let's debug this. Find out why this thing is not working, and we will see why this thing is not working. It's pretty straightforward, so it should work, but it's not. Okay, so so let's me refresh this, and let's deploy that change that I just did, so we can see where even this create contact is getting called or not. Lightning button, this create contact, right? It should be called. Okay. Okay. There's some error, bunch of errors, but I don't think that's related to our component. Okay. Okay, let's do this. Empty cache hard reload. Let's do something like this. Okay, so now let's create a contact. Oh, you see the test card appeared actually. That means it was working fine. So console. Oh, there you go. Okay, so that must have been just the cache. Okay, cool. It's actually working. See, I can see my contact that I just added. But as you can see, I'm refresh. I had to refresh, etc., to see this. Right? We want to make this really breeze. So we have 9 more minutes. See if we can get through this. All right. So now what I want to do is add that refresh event here real quick, right? So to refresh, all that you need to do is import. So import, and then I have to import the refresh event, right? So let's actually import that refresh event. We can say refresh event, and the module will be lightning refresh. It should actually show us. I don't know uh, why it's not, like, why this thing is not showing us, but really it should have shown us that there's a thing called lightning and then there's a thing called refresh. I'll work with the tooling team to see why it kind of did not show up there for you, but really all that you need is refresh event. So what we need to do here is we need to dispatch this. So here I'm going to say this dot refresh event. So refresh event actually, sorry. So the way you dispatch that is we say this dot dispatch event, and so this dot dispatch event, and in this dispatch event you need this refresh event. So refresh event is a class, remember, so you'll have to instantiate it. So we just say new refresh event. We can peek underneath it by just clicking on this. Usually it did not show up, but you can peek under the hood and see, so we know this is a class. So all that you need to do is this dot dispatch event. This is like a standard function. Okay, so if you say this dot, it will show all the functions that are accessible to this LWC module. So all that you need to do is this dot dispatch event. It's coming from this LWC module here, right? So when I say this, it's basically extending from this class lightning element, and then it has a dispatch event, and there I'm using the refresh event. So let me quickly actually deploy this and then show you what happens there. Okay, so that was fast. Now I will blow up the cache so we don't get the caching issue this time. So we just go here. Come on, this is, I mean, generally when I click on here, it actually shows up empty cache at hard reload. I prefer that just because Lightning Experience caches so much. And the other reason is obviously I'm in the debug mode. Generally we recommend to switch off the debug mode. All right, so here, right, I'm gonna add myself here. Obviously, this will not let me because I have a pattern in place. But then when I create contact now, you see, I was instantaneous, right? So test code live. Um, you see, I was like instantaneous right there. As you can see, it's pretty much, the API is pretty fast and kind of helps you to refresh the component. Now, if you had something on an account and making changes to the account, it would reflect right away in this component. If you add a task, it will reflect in this component. So basically, now you can see that the component is reflecting the changes. Let's see if you have any questions, and then I can give you some more information around this and where you can find more resources and work with it. Nick Johnson says, nice. Yeah, it's always nice to get it working, Yeah, cool. So the next thing that I want to talk, we have like 5 minutes left. I want to talk, and I couldn't get time to show you, was so this is an example of dispatching the event. But imagine that you have a custom component. Let's say like add contact here. I had another little bit of function in here that kind of showed me the number of contacts I have on an account. Whenever I add new contact through standard Salesforce interface, I want my lighting component to also reflect that change. And for that, you could use get record notify also, but then you can also handle this refresh event too in that component. So there is a handler. There is a whole example of how to build a handler. So real quick, if you want to build a handler, all you need is uh, if I blow it up and show here, all you need is another function called refresh handler and unregister refresh handler. So in your connected callback, you register that by passing the whole LWC module by using this, and then you can call a callback function called refresh handler. So what happens when you handle that refresh, right? So that function gets invoked actually, where you can like refresh your data or do further actions upon refresh. And then obviously you have to unregister that handler as well. So you just call that function again, or pass that function callback function in the unregister handler. So that's how you use register handler. Unfortunately, I ran out of the time, but it's not that difficult to replicate this example. So this is, remember that if you want your lightning component to listen for any of the standard events, including the refresh that has happened, this is a great way to do that. And then the container, so only advantage of adding a container to this is you also get statuses, like if the refresh fails, right? This is only a success handler kind of thing. If something fails, you don't know. But if you add a container to it, you also get this capability of knowing whether the component refresh was successful or not. The another thing I want to do is, like, if I google for like refresh LWC component, right? Most of the things that you will you will look, you will you'll get into the hack like this. Where was it? Probably not on this one, but you know so if you look for that, people would have written a lot of content around using something like this. See this? So I want to say, so let me put it in the um, this one, right? This is not going to work anymore. So this works today. E-force refresh view, just put a evalve on that, and that actually works today. But remember that once you kind of enable lightning web security, so lightning web security is how we imagine the next generation of security for lightning. So for example, if you go to your session settings and if you search for LWS, lightning web security here, so if you check this checkbox, right, use lightning web security, you will see that this hack no more works within the lightning web security. So that's why it's critical to understand the refresh events and use it. It's GA now from summer. Your org should have access to this, and you should be using them for your lightning web components. All right, I think I have like a minute or so, so let's see if I can bring back my camera and you know so yeah, so I hope you all kind of enjoyed this session, and kind of it was informational. I know a lot of you said you've used it, but for those of you who are new, you learned something. Hopefully, you learned something. Similar thing for those of you, who would have kind of not had chance to explore this. You had, you got something out of it. So again, thank you so much for tuning in today. Just let me know how you feel about these sessions. If there are any more concepts that you want us to put content on, do let us know. Uh, I have my Twitter handle. Let me see if I can really pop in there real quick. Um, but yeah, feel free to. So there is my Twitter handle. Feel free to tweet me out and let me know how the session went. And again, enjoy your evening or day, depending on your time zones. And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.